Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, reveals his plans for his own private oil refinery. Ethiopia Airlines becomes Airbus's first extra-wide carrier in Africa. And South Africa's competition regulator clears another hurdle for the merger of the world's top 2 breweries. Hello and welcome to Business Africa. I'm Takunbo Salako. Now, imagine if you were Africa's richest person, say living in Nigeria, what would be on your wish list of things to build or buy? The short answer is anything you like, but for Aliko Dangote, top of his desires now is his own private crude oil refinery. It's perhaps understandable in a country plagued by fuel shortages despite its abundance of oil. But why should that concern a man whose estimated wealth is $16 billion? His business empire already stretches from concrete to foods, so more diversification lies behind Dangote's development project. But with the region experiencing an economic downturn sparked by a slump in commodity prices, is his move into oil and gas financial folly? Claire Muthinji and Jean-David Mihamle weigh up the evidence.
Aliko Dangote has finally ventured into the oil industry. Africa's richest man plans to launch Nigeria's first private crude oil refinery. Currently, the refinery is under construction and he says it will have a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day and is expected to be fully functional by the year 2019. And what about its financing?
Refinery we funded from our own cash flow, but we just gotten approval of $150 million by IFC and also central bank, through the intervention fund, we got about, 50 billion dollars, 50 billion naira of local support, 10 years money, at about 9%.
Despite his new focus into the oil industry, the business mogul plans to build a gas pipeline through West Africa and cement plants in 8 African countries by the year 2018, while a 9th one is set to be open in Congo Republic by September this year. With Nigeria recently floating its currency, the naira lost about 30% of its value to the dollar, pushing up costs in business.
The gas, which is our main source of power, is priced in dollars. So if there is 40% devaluation, your price will go up by 40%. The operational expenses, our dozers, our mining equipment, our trucks for distribution, our spare parts, every single aspect of the production will go up by that percentage of the dollar. And it's not only us, it's almost everybody.
Being a seasoned entrepreneur, Dangote plans to list in the London Stock Exchange within the next 2 years.
Ethiopia Airlines now have the keys to Airbus's first extra-wide aircraft in Africa. The A350-900 is one of 14 the carrier will deploy on its expanding route network connecting the East African nation with Asia and America. The extra-wide-body aircraft is designed to be much more efficient compared to existing aircraft of similar size, with dramatically reduced CO2 emissions. Nia Kofri and Guy Rodriguez-Louet have more.
Ethiopian Airlines has taken delivery of Africa's first Airbus A350-900. The plane, one of 14 ordered by the company, arrived in Addis Ababa on Wednesday on its maiden flight from Toulouse in France. The acquisition is part of the state-owned airliner's plans to modernize and expand its fleet.
The arrival of this aircraft is a confirmation of Ethiopian Airlines' commitment to play a leading role in the socio-economic development of our beloved country and the integration of the continent through the provision of competitive, reliable, safe and secure air transport.
The chief executive officer of the airline is hopeful the new acquisition will put the company in pole position in the aviation sector.
You know, the cabin features, the passenger comfort, the wider seats, and better air quality, and very quiet. It's not noisy. So the passengers will take advantage of this new technology airplane, and of course it puts us in a better competitive position.
Ethiopian Airlines, ranked the largest carrier in Africa by IATA, raked in some $2.39 billion in 2015. The company plans to increase its revenue to $10 billion by 2025 by doubling its fleet and exploring new routes, especially in Asia. Ethiopian Airlines currently has 77 planes, including 13 Boeing 7878 Dreamliners, and has orders for 6 more Dreamliners.
Ask any beer lover you know, and they'll probably say there's always room for one more in the fridge, which may be why AnheuserBuschMiller and Sub-Saharan want to get together to create the world's biggest brewery, aside from controlling a company that could account for 30% of global beer sales. That idea is now one step closer after a favourable decision by South Africa's Competition Tribunal. Kenneth Karuri and John-David Mihamle have this report.
South Africa's Competition Tribunal has approved a $112 billion merger between AnheuserBuschMiller and Sub-Saharan, which will create the world's biggest brewer. The approval, which was broadly welcomed by labour and grain farmers, was granted subject to conditions designed to address both public interest and competition concerns arising from the merger. Under some of the key conditions, South African breweries will sell off its 26% stake in Distel, the largest brewer of ciders in South Africa. Another condition is that the merged entity can't make any merger-linked retrenchments for the next 5 years after the merger. Anheuser-Busch has spent several months lobbying governments around the world, and in a bid to secure approval in South Africa, it has made a few concessions, which included creating a $100 million fund that will support the local beer industry and protect jobs. The global brewer says it has now obtained approval in 16 jurisdictions and will continue talks with governments in the US and China. AnheuserBusch is a multinational Belgian-Brazilian beverage and brewing company headquartered in Leuven in Belgium. It is the world's largest brewer and has 25% of the global market share.
That report on possibly the world's biggest macro brewery ends this week's show. You can share your views on the programme on our social websites, and don't forget there's always more business on Africanews.com. Thanks for watching and see you next week.